up? And welcome into another episode of the Worship Based Coffee Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Soleil. Welcome in to episode 15. I've got a great guest today for you. But before I talk about the guest, back up for just a moment. When I started this whole podcast, one of the ideas that I had thought of was, yes, this is worship based coffee, but I also wanted to bring in guests from other instruments, other roles on worship teams, ones that are on my worship team and on others, just to give opportunities to hear things from different perspectives, from a different instrument. I know some people play more than one instrument, so you might play bass and play drums. And so you can have some different opinions and ideas on things. And so that's kind of what today is. My guest is a really good friend of mine, definitely one of my best friends. His name is Jeremy Williams, and he plays drums and serves at the Bridge Church with me. And he and I hit it off right at the beginning when I first went to the church, and we've just kind of struck up a great friendship since then. And I feel like that has flourished what our playing on stage and our tightness and all that. It really does how your relationship is with people when you kind of develop those friendships. It can really, that stuff can come out of your playing when you kind of develop that chemistry with each other. And so he's a great friend away from worship, on worship. And so I just wanted y'all to get to hear his story, hear some of his perspective from a drummer, what he listens for, how he approaches music and worship, and might get something different from it. So my first drummer for 2026. So probably be a few more down the road. But anyway, let's get to it. Hey, Jeremy, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, Jay?
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Welcome to the Worship Based Coffee Podcast.
Thank you for having me. Super stoked to be here.
And you're my first official non-bassist to come on to the podcast. I just thought it would be cool to not only just to get to hear some of your story, but also just to hear from your perspective, like what you look for with a bass player, kind of like what you're trying to accomplish when you're serving with a bass player. So I'm looking forward to when we get to some of those questions to be able to talk about that a little bit. But you're home right now, but at any moment you could be called upon to go across the US. So talk a little bit about like what you do and share about that.
Yeah. So I'm a drummer on Sundays. Well, some Sundays, worship drummer. But really I'm a husband and a dad first. But what keeps my family afloat is that I'm a supply chain consultant. So I travel to different distribution centers around the United States and go help them, be more efficient and figure out what some better workflows are for them and stuff. And that puts a lot of strain on me to make sure that I'm planning all of this stuff correctly, because I do have to travel all the time and I do get last minute calls. And I just got a call yesterday saying, hey, you're flying out Monday morning. So now I know I'm going on the road again. Holidays are over. But yeah, so my job's 100% travel. If I'm not on the road, I'm not really doing too much. So yeah, that's kind of what I do on a regular basis throughout the week.
Yeah, I know that you had shared with me some of the companies like Best Buy, Milwaukee, and share a little bit about like kind of the strategy behind why, like, so you go down onto the, like, I guess it's like their warehouse floors and like what you're like trying to do.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm going out onto the floor with a team of people from my company, and we're trying to go and identify bottlenecks and places where maybe they're not working as efficiently as they could be. We're redesigning workstations. We're redesigning workflow. We're making sure that work is being put out to the warehouse in an efficient manner, so that everything does flow through the building. We want to see the product come in through the receiving dock and then ship out through the shipping door, all in a very smooth pattern. So it's a lot of being out on the floor, spending time with the people, really digging into what is actually happening on the floor, not just what is a report saying is happening, but going out and actually identifying what that looks like.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know you and I talk obviously on Sundays, just kind of sharing about our jobs and stuff like that. So I just think it's cool just to kind of hear, a little bit about like what your job entails. And I know some it when I first came on to the bridge, I know we were playing. This is before you had gotten this job. We were playing on some Wednesday nights too for
Hmm.
students and stuff like that. But now with this job, most of the time you're kind of like Monday through Thursday ish, you're
Hmm.
away from home. So
Yep, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's where this has been kind of something unique for me to handle because I used to serve pretty often, like maybe a couple of times a month, just trying to help out my local church.
Yeah.
And I had to really pull that back and be intentional about when I was going to serve and what that was going to look like. And there's every so often when I get to help out a little bit extra, but unfortunately, I've really had to just pull the reins on that, and just be very intentional about when and how I'm serving the church for right now.
Yeah.
There's always possibilities that it won't be so intense, the travel schedules, but for right now, that's just kind of what that looks like.
Well, and I've actually shared on several of the podcast episodes, and we've kind of tried to talk about that. I try to let that be an encouragement, not only for you and for myself, but for everybody that we're all in different seasons, it's very easy to get caught up in those seasons and feel like kind of depressed about it a little bit, because what your heart really wants is to get to serve a lot more and do a lot more. But what, for whatever reason, God has us in these particular seasons. And I feel like the best way to be in those seasons is to embrace where God has you right now. Colony House right now, they have a new album out, and the quote that they've been dropping a lot is, "You're right where you're meant to be."
Mm,
And that I want to always remember that, daily, just like right now, whatever season I'm in, to not get caught up in looking to see where other people are, and but to just kind of embrace that season, but giving that example kind of the season that you're in now too, and where your heart would love to serve more, but where you're at, you're like, hey, I also have a devotion to my family, which I love very much, and want to spend time with them. So,
absolutely. I've actually had a little bit of just kind of self reflection on this whole topic recently, because at the end of the day, I do love going and serving. Being able to go worship using my gift is something I love dearly. It gives me energy, it gives me joy. But I think it's realistic to say that there's probably times when all of us just really aren't feeling like going and doing it. And,
yeah.
like maybe we're not feeling good, maybe we're stressed out with work, whatever. And I've definitely had those times. But then that's when I remind myself that as much as I get to have fun serving, this is one of those areas where you get to have fun and go help. Um, it also is at the core serving your church, right? So sometimes it is kind of hard to go do that stuff, but it almost never fails that even when I'm struggling and I go do it, because I know that like I'm just trying to help and I'm giving my gift to my church and I'm using my gift that the Lord gave me. Um, I usually come out of that being super happy and end up having a great day, having
Yeah.
great moments on in the worship set, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just really important to remember that, we're not doing this just for the feel good. We're doing it because we're helping serve our
Yeah.
church.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And you find out that kind of like gives you the almost like readjustment that you need for the upcoming week, and being more present with your family, and everything. So, yeah, I completely agree with that. Well, one of the things I wanted you to share about, obviously I know some of this, but I don't know all of it, which I was like, very excited about, was kind of so you grew up over on the West Coast, right?
That's right.
California,
Mhm.
Washington-ish.
Yeah.
Uh, so like at the young age of when did you get into music?
So yeah, good question. I grew up in church. My dad was a worship
Mm.
pastor. So I've been around music for a really long time.
I can't believe I never knew that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Um, my career started as being the drummer for my dad. He's a piano player and a worship leader. And shoot, I remember going to little churches with him that were in gymnasiums, and it was a piano and a drum set. And it was just me and him. And I was super young and he was super patient with me. But I grew up in music, in churches, in music. And I just I was always drawn to the drummer for some reason. I enjoyed music, but something just always took me to the drummer. And maybe it's because I was just a young boy and I thought, oh, he gets to hit things. Um, but there was just something so intriguing. No matter where I was at, I always ended up watching the drummer. And so then eventually my parents worked with one of the drummers at the church that I ended up growing up in, and got me into drum lessons with him when I was
Hmm.
7. So started
Okay.
officially playing when I was 7 years old, with one of the church drummers that was one of my favorite drummers. So that worked out
Nice.
perfect. He was a drum teacher and, it was familiar for me. So got to start learning there.
That probably
Um,
made it exciting for you learning from him because you kind of
absolutely.
looked up to him. So that's
Yep.
awesome.
Yep. And this was a very long time ago, back when churches had music pits and stuff like that. So there was a lot. Worship looked a lot different back then than it does now, right? But I remember there was some nights that they were a little bit more Latin themed, and this specific drummer would sometimes lift the entire kit up so that he could stand behind it instead of sitting down on a drum throne. And I
Nice.
just was the kid going, "Oh my gosh, how does he do that?" And I loved it. And then I got to go tell people like, "He's my drum teacher. He's my drum teacher."
That's
Um,
amazing.
but yeah, it just made it super super special for me.
That's awesome. So, uh, drums was kind of that focus. Was there ever any other instrument that you ever, or was it just like, I'm all in on drums?
It's been pretty much all in on drums. I have always enjoyed listening to bass players. Like just there's a bunch of different artists where I have albums from, like, common names, Marcus Miller, Victor Wooten.
Yeah.
I've always dug that. Victor has all his fun little things, but
Yeah.
Marcus's pocket and his groove is just I mean, I remember some awe moments. I remember when Power came out, when Marcus Miller released Power,
Yes.
and it was just jaw dropping for me. I
Yeah.
thought, oh my gosh, I've never heard a pocket so big in my life. But yeah, so I've always enjoyed bass players, and I don't know if that's just subconsciously because I've always seen them work so close to each other, or if it's because of
Yeah.
my relationship with them or what. But I a long time ago started picking up bass and kind of trying to learn how to tinker around on it. But I don't know, when you start throwing letters and numbers at a drummer, they get confused quickly. So
Yeah, we always joke about that on Sunday mornings when they're like, "Hey, is it okay if we change the key to such and such?" I'm like, "I don't know. Jeremy's not going to be too happy about that."
no, yeah, I already rehearsed this in
Yeah,
whatever.
in G. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so funny. So what are so besides your teacher that you had, Do you have any other drummers that were like influences on you?
Yeah, I would say two huge influences on me, especially growing up, was a drummer. His name is Dave Weckl.
Mm,
He's like a fusion drummer. He's in the Dave Weckl
yeah,
band, but I just was always awestruck by Dave. And then one of my main drum instructors growing up, he was a huge Dave Weckl fan. So we would go watch his VHSs back in the
nice.
day and then go like replicate that on our kit so that we could learn how to do some of his stuff. Um,
Nice.
and then I got to go to a couple of different conferences with a guy called Zorro.
Huh.
Um, his name's Zorro. He's the Zorro the drummer. And he is or was like a huge R&B and soul drummer. Bald white guy. He wears the Build Zorro hat. Kind of plays into that a little bit.
Amazing.
Yeah, but man, his pocket. And then that was during a season in drumming when drum machines were trying to take over. So he
Oh,
was really big in like 80s, 90s, and talking about how do I, as a drummer, emulate the sound that people are looking for in a drum machine now, because so many people were moving to drum machines and programming drums rather than having a drummer come in because it's
right.
so much simpler. Totally get that. But the after effect of that is now people are looking for that sound. They're looking for that style of what did a drum machine sound like. So it rather than just kind of feeling the music and moving with the music, you got to like lock in with
Yeah.
patterns and repetition and stuff like that. So he was a huge influence to me for that. So when it comes to, I didn't know as a kid what the word pocket was or what it was even
Right.
referencing. I just knew what I felt. And then later on learned what that was. But I got my pocket from listening to Dave and listening to Zorro. Huge influences in that way. And then as I started to get older, um, the hit, everybody calls him LP. He's the drummer for Yellow Card.
Yeah.
He was a huge influence for me. And I say LP because I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his name. And probably a lot of people would say, yeah, me
Yeah.
either. It's kind of one of those weird names. So everybody
Yeah.
just says LP. But he was a huge influence to me. Um, and then that kind of started to like really influence kind of like my pop punk influence that I have on some of my drumming now. And that's where I get some of those builds and that energy
Yeah.
and stuff from is, I'm not doing punk beats or anything like
Right.
that. But when it comes to energy or following some of the different syncopations and stuff like that, a lot of that comes from him.
That's awesome. So you mentioned Yellow Card. Were there any other like in your younger years where like, oh, you're listening to music and then you're like, oh, I need to learn, these some of these songs, how to play these songs. Were there any other bands that you can think of that were influences?
I Yes, there was a lot. Another big name for me to call out would be Brian Culbertson. He's kind of like a smooth jazz guy, but he's probably one of the funkiest in smooth jazz, like hands down, without trying to be straight up funk. But he was a huge influence to me. But I think when I was younger, more so than trying to emulate something, the music would just make me feel, and then I would do my best to like express my feeling in it. So I
Nice.
would kind of I would kind of learn like the basics or the foundation of what somebody was doing, but the embellishments, the way that something transitioned or moved, I wanted to like get my own emotion out, and
Okay.
that's what really kind of, I guess, segued my drumming into the way that I am now is
Mm-hmm.
it's like an emotional expression for me. Or like on a Sunday morning, I have done a ton of preparation for that set already.
Right.
So in that moment, I'm worshiping through my drums, rather
Yeah.
than just trying to play or play the part or play the transition or whatever. Yeah, but anyways, all of that to say, a lot of it has been just I'm influenced by something that I hear. And then I'm like, oh, what I would do this, or what would this sound like? Or, I start to try to think about how would I
Right.
kind of change that a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I know you said you started playing in church, obviously at a very young age. Did you ever like have start any bands with any buddies or do any of that at any time?
Absolutely. As I got a little bit older into my later teens, I want to say probably starting around 16 or so, there was a worship group, or it was two female singers. And their name was Times Two,
Okay.
and they both went to the church that I grew up at, and they actually started traveling around with the church and doing women's conferences at all of the different Foursquare churches around the nation.
Hmm.
Foursquare was the denomination of the church that I grew
Okay.
up in. And so I started traveling around with them. And that started, I want to say, my freshman year of high school. So like 14, 15. And that kind of gave us issues with me in school because the school didn't like me not being there.
Right.
So my parents actually started homeschooling me
Oh, okay.
for the rest of high school so that I could just, stay super focused on music and continue to do those traveling gigs and stuff. And it wasn't anything um huge. We weren't on tour buses or anything like
Right.
that, but once, sometimes twice a month, we would travel out somewhere for a weekend and do this conference somewhere. We were the
Okay.
worship band for the whole weekend. So that
Nice.
was probably the biggest, most influential thing that I was associated with while growing up.
Yeah.
Um, but then I was in a pop punk band that I would say references would be like Good Charlotte and Newfound
Hmm.
Glory.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
when I was like 14 and 15, kind of transitioning into this, worship thing. So that was a ton of fun. I got a bunch of, pop punk experience from that. We wore like really bright pants, like yellows, orange, blue, red, and we wore visors, like
Nah.
full on visors where your hair comes out.
Yeah.
And I used the spiker glue stuff that had different colors. I mean,
That's
we went
amazing.
all out for it. Um, but yeah, so I did that, and then I was in a couple of harder rock, like a post-hardcore band, and then like a progressive rock band as I got older, more in like 18 to 20-year-old range. But yeah, so I got to play a bunch of different stuff, and then like in bands, and then I gigged around when I lived in Washington, which is where I grew up most of my life. Um, I was able to go gig around, and music was my income. I taught drum lessons and played drums for people, and
Nice.
that's what I did. But yeah, I got to go play some Latin gigs, some R&B gigs. Um, Got to go do a bunch of different things, covering for people and just trying to network out there.
Yeah, that's amazing. So like for a Sunday morning, I was thinking about this, uh, if you're gone Monday through Thursday, and obviously I know you've told me you don't have an actual kit set up at the house. So
That's
talk
right.
talk about how in the world you prepare for a Sunday morning.
Yeah. So this kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, where I have to be super intentional. I don't really have free time during
Right.
the week or on the weekends. So this stuff is planned, it's structured, and it's very intentional. So even if I was home, like you said, I don't have a drum set up right now. I
Yeah.
have an electric kit that's sitting in the corner, and I got kicked out of my space because our family kept growing and,
Yeah.
lost all of our bedrooms.
Like,
So
dang it, I gotta let one of my kids have it.
yeah, yeah. So we're working on something, but for the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, yeah, I haven't had anything to be able to actually sit down and practice on. So
Yeah.
what that looks like for me is very intentional, structured, sit down, highly focused time spent listening through the songs. And I'm playing through the parts mentally. I might, slap my legs on my hands on my legs a little bit to just kind of like work out some different patterns or something based
Right.
on what the song is. But um, I just have to really spend some time focusing on the song, getting familiar with the song, and then focusing on the right parts. I'm looking at, feel, transitions, um, you know, counting out how many bars something is. Nowadays, a bridge might build for 4 bars. It might build for 6 or 8 bars. So making
Yeah.
sure that I know that. And I would say I can't really like emphasize or stress how important that kind of preparation is, because I could sit down behind a kit and practice, when I get that set up, or, figure something out.
Sure.
But really knowing those songs
Mm.
and really being able to say, I'm familiar with this, is what, allows me to sit down on a Sunday morning and legitimately worship. And,
Yeah.
if something goes and flows somewhere, great, let's go. We're all figuring it out at that
Yeah.
point. Um, but I just really try to make sure that I'm preparing myself by being as familiar as I can with that song, as well as if I can find time, or if it's, if I'm able to, I like to, or I love to be able to actually worship to those songs. That way, when I'm playing on a Sunday, I'm just worshiping to this song that I've already spent intimate time with,
Yeah.
rather than just saying like, "Oh yeah, I know this song." I think
Mhm.
it's so easy to say like, "Oh yeah, it's church songs, it's church chords, whatever." And for some people that comes just naturally and easily. Some people have to think a little bit more with that, but even on the ones that feel pretty natural and easy, or we've done a bunch of times, I still always try to fit in time to worship to it during the week,
Yeah.
because that's just one of the ways I guess I can emotionally connect to it,
Mhm.
given my circumstance.
Yeah.
Because there's only so much you could do in a hotel room. So,
Very true.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point about, because a lot of churches can sometimes be, I don't say this in a bad way, but repetitious for different songs. But I think it's great to be able to take a song that, even though you've played it, 50 times, and I don't even really have to listen to it, to instead use that as an opportunity to, okay, I might already know this song, but you know what? Maybe I'm just going to listen to the lyrics. I'm just going to sing along with it and just kind of use it as a moment to connect my heart to it, like you said, and really get to kind of worship, to where you're not having to be like analytical about a song. I think,
Yes.
I try to say this to my wife. Musicians listen to music so much differently than
Hmm.
a non-musician. Even if it's a song you've never heard before, comes on the radio, you're listening to all of these different instruments, or you're singling in on just the drums, or I'm singling in on the bass. It's just like this, where our ears naturally go. And sometimes it's like something you can't turn off either.
Hmm.
And so sometimes it's good to have those songs where you've heard them so many times that you're not trying to listen for all those, those minor things in it.
Yep, exactly. And we even have a couple examples of things we've posted on our page for parts of songs where we do something different that's not on the album or on any sort of live variant of it, where we just kind of come up with like these hits or these cymbal washes or something
Right.
like that. And the times that I've shown up and said, "Hey, can we try something?" That's come from those moments. It's come from
Mm,
those moments of intimacy during the week where I'm
yeah.
feeling something in my heart and I'm like, "Hey, I want to try this." And unfortunately, I have to wait till Sunday morning to try to, hit it out on the drums.
Yeah.
But then we either go with it or we don't, or
Right.
whatever. But there's been some really fun moments, and it changes it up. It's like, yeah, we've done this song a bunch of times, but we get to, add something a little bit different in here.
Yeah. That's awesome. So we talked about it at the top of the podcast, but one of the reasons I thought it would be great to have you come on, besides the fact that you are one of my BFFs, uh, is that, like, hearing your perspective of bass. And so, like, when you show up, and maybe it's not me, maybe it's somebody else that you haven't played for or played with before, like, what is it that you listen for with the bassist that you're trying to lock in with?
Um, I would say the big thing that I'm trying to lock in with is feel, and then also patterns, and making sure that we are building through the song together. Like you and I have talked multiple times about how, okay, for the first chorus and second chorus, we're going to do this pattern. And then that way, we're super tight and locked. And then we're going to add that extra double kick and that double hit or whatever on the last chorus, because we've already built it up so hard
Right.
that we're going to drive it a little harder. So stuff like that. I mean, it's pretty natural with you, because I think you and I are we just already think the same way. But if I'm playing with a bass player that I'm not used to playing with on a regular basis during rehearsal or first pass through, I'm listening to, I'll lock into what I know that I was planning on doing. And then but I'm listening to what the bass player is doing. And then sometimes I might change what I'm doing a little bit to match them so that we're locked. And then I'll talk with them about that. Or sometimes I might go trying to talk like, hey, I was listening through, the chorus of this song, and I was kind of thinking this, what do you think? And trying to, make it a partnership. Drums lead a lot, and it's easy to lead from drums because, we're big and we're loud. But it needs to be a partnership. It needs to be a conversation there. So I don't want to turn somebody else's practice time into, oh, now I'm thinking about everything I'm doing because Jeremy said do this, like I want us to work together so that it feels natural. We're not having to think a ton about what we're doing. We're just kind of, moving forward and grooving with it. But yeah, I think just those patterns, those dynamics, and then making sure that we're, staying simple when it's right, building when it's right. There's been a couple of times too when you might have a bass line or like a lick that you want to do. So I'll make sure that I back off during that part so that you can do that. Or if there's been a couple other bass players I've played with where in rehearsal they do this little line, and I know, okay, he's going to do that little line. So I'm going to stay right here just locked so that he can do that. And then I'll do my build fill on the next one or whatever.
Okay.
But that way we're kind of, going back and
Yeah.
forth and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know, like for me, when I'm playing with maybe a drummer that either that I haven't played with, or maybe I have, but it's been a while. And that what I've always talked about, at least from the bassist perspective, is yes, I learn the song how the MP3 is, whatever the bass pattern is, whatever the kick pattern is. But when I show up, the drummer may have the kick pattern a little bit different. And so that's one thing I think as bassists that we have to be like kind of aware of, is to pay attention to that. Maybe you don't learn, maybe you learn it exactly how it is, but don't show up with the idea of I'm going to play it exactly like that, because the drummer
Yes.
may have like, oh, okay, what if we change the kick pattern around and we do it like this at the beginning and then we do it like that? And so I think it's good for us as bassists to be able to learn to listen, to that. That's like, to me, the most important thing as bassists that we can listen to is the kick. Uh, Although there are certain times where maybe the kick pattern is straight and you're doing these little kind of fills, and sometimes it's cool to do the bass notes along with kind of what the fills are doing instead, just to kind of, it's like make it a little more syncopated. So, but saying all that, it's important to be able to learn to follow what the drummer is doing, no matter, what kind of pattern that is. What's something that like a bass player could do that just like you would make your job easier on a Sunday morning?
Besides play like Jay? um, no, I think you really hit the nail on the head with what you just said.
Okay.
And that's a really good point. Like as part of showing up prepared. Let me start there. Show up prepared.
Yeah.
Know the music.
Yeah.
If you're floating and guessing the whole time, it's gonna be nearly impossible to be able to lock in on anything because you're not locked. You're floating everywhere.
Right.
But show up prepared. And I think if we both show up prepared with what the track is like, then the little embellishments or the little, cymbal washes, whatever, those will come from, something different.
Yeah.
But showing up prepared and knowing what those patterns are and what the song's supposed to sound like, and then working together to build off of that.
Yeah.
I think that's been a great foundation and a way to say it for how you and I usually show up.
Yeah.
And then unless it's a song we've played 100 times together and we know what we do
Yeah.
to lock in on it, But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah. I think that's, like I said, a lot of it is we're lucky in that, and maybe a lot of people have this too, is they get to play with some of the same people over and over again. And so you kind of learn their tendencies, you learn kind of how they do things, and then it makes it easier to lock in. But here's one of the things that I think is one of the most underrated uh, forms of locking in with somebody, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the music. And that is just getting to know the person. I remember when you and I first met, or some of the first Sundays that we served together, when we did have our little bit of green room time. That's what we were doing. We were chatting, getting to know each other, asking each other about our family lives, also texting each other through the week and encouraging each other.
Yeah.
I think that's some of the most important ways to really build a strong chemistry is through that. And that's one of the reasons why I have the coffee in my worship-based
Yes.
coffee is, you know what? Just an encouragement to bass players out there, invite your drummer out for coffee, you know, uh, or get their number, text them throughout the week. And when you have opportunities to sit and chat and ask each other about what they're going through, all that stuff just builds a chemistry that puts it on a different level. Because there's something, I can't explain it, but there's something about when you connect here that
Hmm.
it comes out of your hands with each other. So
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That's a great call out, because as we've played together, we've also gotten closer in a personal
yeah,
relationship.
yeah,
So there's just this bigger connection that's there.
yeah, for sure. So what also, I didn't prepare this question. There are two questions I have for you. One is tone wise, what do you like listen for bass? Like when you're trying to listen to them on your mixer, like what are you listening for?
I definitely want some fullness. I think what I end up running into though is there's only so much headroom in
Mm,
our in-ears.
yeah,
So if the bass is just too in the basement, it becomes really hard to hear.
mm,
And I have a little bit of a unique mix in my ears, probably compared to a lot of drummers. I feel like a lot of drummers keep the drums pretty low in their mix because they're
oh,
sitting right in front of the drum
true,
set. But there's something about being able to kind of, as much as you can, kind of feel that kick drum in your ears
mm,
for me, that it just like, it makes me feel good. And that's where like I really dig in and try to get that pocket
right,
again. So I've already got this really loud instrument in my ears. So when there is some clarity in the bass, that helps a ton. And you asked me about this also, or not asked me, but you've mentioned some of the different tones, and you put a little bit of growl on your bass
yeah,
sometimes. And that helps it really cut through
yeah,
in those big moments. So even if I'm like riding a crash cymbal or something, I can still hear you coming
mm,
through. So I think just, I know your bass, I know you're supposed to be down low, but having some tone in there really helps me so that I can make sure that you're coming through on my ears too. Because if the bass is too hot in my ears, it just drowns everything out. You can't
yeah,
hear anything because
mm-hmm,
all that low rumble just takes over.
yeah. Yeah, that's where I think like the mids and like an overdriven tone just really helps. And because of that, so if you're going for a tone that basically you can hear really good on this,
Hmm.
which we know how big the speakers are on that. So
Yep.
if you can hear it on your phone, then what the front of house can do is they can leave that, but then they can put in the subs, put some of it into the subs. So then you have both. So you're cutting through the mix with that tone, but then also you still have the subs. And that I think helps, like you said, for everybody being able to hear what you're doing, in your mix.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good call out too, because drummers can't adjust their tone necessarily as
Mm,
much, but we can affect tuning to a certain extent. And I want to say that lightly because usually when you're playing in a church, they've got everything the way that they want it. So you don't want, a worship drummer to come in with these huge tones and then, um, you know, uh, oldies drummer coming in or a jazz drummer and tuning everything up. Like that's not what we do. We want to keep consistency and continuity between all of the services and everything and the other drummers that are coming in before and after us. But making sure that we're touching up those tunings, but also remembering that for drums specifically, you're tuning for the room. You're not necessarily tuning for what you hear right in front of you. Although that's the starting point, that's what's important. I think what ends up happening is a lot of drummers end up putting all this dampening on their toms and all this stuff. And it's like, that's being taken care of. They're setting up
right.
gates and compressors and stuff to take care of that. So when you dampen it that much, it really kills the tone for everybody in our
Mm,
ears. But like when we got our new Franklin kit at the bridge, those toms were just so uh, nice and open that all of a sudden we heard it in our ears and we were like, oh my gosh, it's like I've got a monitor engineer over here.
yeah.
Like they sounded so good.
That's
And
amazing.
it's because they were tuned well for the room. And then the little overtones and stuff, that's being taken care of at front of house. We got good tone coming from the drums. And then the little nuances, the little things that poke out or whatever,
Right.
that's being taken care of by processing. So now we've got this great tone in our ears. Front of house is getting great tone. So I think it's really important for both of us to make sure that we're keeping tabs on that.
Yeah. Talk, and then the other question I was going to ask you is talk a little bit about serving the song. I know as bassists, some of us can get a little bit carried away with fills and stuff like that. And I mean, I get it. I understand. It's fun to
Yep.
do.
Yep.
But talk a little bit about that, about how important, like as a bassist, serving the songs with the drummer is.
Yeah. From like the bassist perspective or from the
Yeah,
drummer's
well, for
perspective?
both, like
Okay.
how you would listen to it, where and like say in a building part or something like that.
Gotcha. So I would say first and foremost that time and feel are paramount. Making sure that we're locked in on the click and that we've got the right feel and that we're both aligned on that. And then I would say like consistency in your styling of what you're doing. If you're trying to stay contemporary Christian, stay contemporary Christian. If y'all are doing kind of a gospel variation of it, then stay gospel.
Sure.
Don't be like jumping back and forth from one place
Right.
to another, but just keeping everything super intentional and like building together. So we have played Sundays before where I might start. In fact, we just did this at Christmas. Um, I will start playing a build on just my snare in my ride to start building some tension. And then when you come in and start the build, boom, now my kick is in with you and now we're building
Right.
together. So some stuff like that is kind of like what I think about when I'm thinking, how do you and I work together, or how does a drummer and a bass player work together? It's things like that, like
Yeah.
uh, keeping my low end intentional for when bass is coming in. Or there's even been a couple of times where we're playing songs, I can't remember the name of it, but I'm in the middle of building and the bass kind of like, like I don't know what it's called when you guys like go down the neck, but you kind of like sub bass out. Um,
Yeah.
and then it's and then it's just drums building. But then there's a break, and then when we all come in, boom, bass is back in, and it's
Right.
huge because you intentionally dropped out, and then boom, came in on the
Right.
one. But I'm driving my kick harder right there to make sure that we still got that low end drive through it.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's kind of what comes to mind when I think about
Okay.
that.
That's awesome. What would you say probably the biggest like lesson that you've learned from getting to serve on a worship team?
I would say probably humility in serving, just because sort of like what I said before, where um, we get to go play our instruments, we get to have fun, but we are also there to serve. It's like I'm not there to do a job. I'm not there because I'm getting paid for it. I'm there because I'm using my gift to serve my church and to serve God. So just some humility in that, and that I am a worship leader. I'm not a performer.
Right.
So even though I'm behind a drum set hitting things, I am listening to what the spirit is doing in the room. I'm being attentive to that. I've already prepared mentally. I've already prepared spiritually. So I get the opportunity to be able to say, what is the room doing? What is God doing right
Yeah.
now? And some of this stuff is pre-rehearsed, yeah, but a lot of people will put boundaries on things and then say, "Oh, you just put a boundary on God." But
Right.
I think that preparation and discipline um, can allow God to move even more, because now we can go anywhere that we want to
Right.
because we're prepared for that. So just having a servant's heart and knowing why you're really there. And that's why I said on Sunday mornings, I'm worshiping behind my kit. So
Right.
I try to stay as locked as I can, but I might play a fill a little bit differently. I might,
Right.
build into something a little bit differently because I feel something different in that
Mm-hmm.
moment in that service. So I'm not there to just, play this play my stamped parts. I'm there to serve. I'm there to serve the song. I'm there to serve the people. I'm there to serve God. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's what has really been heavy on my heart lately. Is I've always thought, like, I'm a drummer, I love going to play. Oh, I love playing with the worship team,
Yeah.
but really I'm there to serve. I'm there to serve everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you, how you handle mistakes or moments when they don't go as planned, but I was like, I can't even think of a time when Jeremy's ever made a mistake.
Oh, plenty of times.
But
Plenty of
they're
times.
probably just so minute that you're the only one that notices. But the one thing, as far as not going as planned, that we have seen you do, and somehow you recover very well, is when you break sticks mid play.
Yes.
And I'll be standing
Yes.
there playing, all of a sudden I see a piece of a stick go flying, and I'm like, uh-oh. And then
Uh-oh.
somehow you're able to grab another stick and just keep right in. So
Yeah. So I always keep my stick bag ready to rock right next to me. I do play on the harder side, so breaking sticks is pretty normal. Um, but yeah, I mean, to kind of touch on the mistakes issue, I would say that even people that are way more gifted and professional than I am probably make mistakes that a lot of people don't notice. And
right.
I think the general consensus or the general saying that most people will say is, nobody knew but you. And I think that is the case sometimes. But what I would say is probably not more important, but another big way to look at it is that moment passes way faster for everybody else than it passed for you.
Mm.
You were
Yes.
thinking about it because you knew something happened. Everybody else went, oh, did something happen? I don't know. Then we
Yeah.
just move on. So like, it's
Right.
just a moment in time.
Yes.
And, if you go listen to that live stream and continue to hear where you did that, it sounds so big to you, but nobody else is really
Yeah.
thinking about it.
No.
Um, there's definitely situations where maybe the drummer does this big dramatic fill and just comes in way too early or comes in way too late. And everybody noticed that. But again, in that situation, the moment passes, you've got to pass with it.
Yeah.
Just let it go, learn from it. What did I do wrong? Did I get too excited, or did I stop counting? Was I thinking about my fill because I wasn't prepared? What happened? Learn from it, but you've just got to move on, because if you stay stuck, I'll say this for the drummers, we get to have fun in song one because it's the upbeat song,
Yeah.
that's generally where a big mistake might happen. Um, if you allow that to stick with you through the rest of the set, you just robbed everybody from your ability to be able to
Right.
worship and serve that song and that entire worship set. So let it go. Let it move on. Let it stay back there, and just stay focused on what you're doing next. And then go slap your forehead and talk to your bandmates about it, after the
Yeah.
set is over.
Or
But
laugh
there's not,
together.
yeah, exactly. There's nothing you can do to go back in time and fix it.
Right.
So you just kind of have to throw your hands up and say, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
and believe me, I've been there. I have plenty of stories of where I rushed a fill, or maybe I forgot that we were doing something. Here's an example. I have a situation where we were in a build and I got ahead of myself and I went into like a full build, and then the MD gets in all of our ears like, we've got one more, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do?
How am I
This is
going to
all
get
I've
there?
got. But if he wouldn't have said, we've got one more, I would have done the break like we were going into the chorus.
Right.
So, a little bit diverted because I had a good MD that said, Jeremy's
Yeah.
going for it. But stuff just happens sometimes. So
Yeah.
just move with it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know that there are actually some bassists who serve on drums that listen in on this podcast. So, real quickly, I'll let you share real quick, like what the kit that you use on Sundays, like what it is, as far as
Yeah.
kick and all that stuff. So,
Yeah, absolutely. We just recently, thanks to Worship Based Coffee, or Jay, the church was gifted with a brand new Maple Franklin kit. So we've got a 24-inch kick drum. We've got a 13 by 9-inch rack tom and a 16 by 16-inch floor tom. And it sounds incredible.
yeah.
We sound like we're professionals now. So I don't sound good. The kit sounds good. But we absolutely love it. And then a few months ago, we ended up getting actually a pork pie black nickel snare. So not quite Black Beauty status, but really, really close. It's nice and big and fat. And so we used to use a lot of triggers on the snare drum, and we don't really have to do that as much anymore.
Yeah.
They still do some processing on the board for the live stream and stuff like that. But for the most part, you're hearing a ton of that snares tone and those drums tone. And then we've got Istanbul cymbals. We've got the 24-inch ride, and then two 22-inch crashes. So pretty standard, huge worship cymbals. We also have a pair of 17-inch dark hi-hats, which are really nice and sloshy. So you get to, kind of buzz them and slosh them and just be creative with those and kind of fill some space, build some anticipation, stuff like that. They're not too bright or chintzy. You don't hear a bunch of ticking and anything like that. So, really, we've got a great setup up there. And then we do have a house SPD that stays up there. I bring on my own SPD every Sunday just because I've got my tones loaded on
Right.
it that I'm comfortable with. I kind of know where they fit and where they
Mm.
don't.
And where
And then
they
there's
are.
some, yeah, that's true. And then for some songs, we like to prepare for, or I like to prepare specific tones for those songs. An example is like the song Tremble. It has a very like iconic
Mm.
electric drum part in it. So if we do something like that, I like to bring that in so that I can
Yeah.
play those parts. And then I'll just ask the MD to mute that out of Ableton so that I can play it live.
Yeah.
And we end up sitting up there a lot because we're drums and we don't play during the gentle parts. But
Right.
if I can play some of those SPD parts or those programmed parts myself, it's just fun to be, creative that way.
Yeah, and that's the same for me. Why I love bringing my Moog in on
Yeah.
Sundays is any parts that I'm not already playing my electric bass on that I can hop on that. I love to be able to play that and kind of help give a little bit of a, I don't know, like the tracks, of course, sound great, but there's something about having the real sub bass in the mix that just kind of,
Yeah.
shakes, rattles the rafters a little bit. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
uh,
And then plus for me, like we need to save lives. So you have to throw a sub drop in there
exactly.
because that's how lives are saved.
You have to have at least one per Sunday.
That's right. That's right.
One of the things I was going to ask you is I know your personal snare. Talk about that, your own personal snare.
Yeah. So I have a 14 by 6.5 inch brass snare by a company called Vertical Drum Company. And I want to say they're based out of Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's a custom snare that I talked with the guy and said, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And
Hmm.
they had something similar. So we just kind of built off of that. So it's just a raw brass snare with satin hardware and then a trick throw on it for the snare wires. And I love it. It's super versatile. I can get that deep, fat sound that a black nickel
Hmm.
snare is looking for, but I can also crank it up and get a little bit more bite and punch out of it when I want to. And going back to a little bit with what we talked about before, where I was in a couple different bands playing for different genres and stuff like
Yeah.
that. One of the things, one of my probably my most influential drum instructor growing up told me was the more styles that you can play, the more calls you'll get.
Yeah.
So it's not
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, Jeremy's the punk drummer. I can only call him for that. It's like,
Right.
hey, we've got this, this reggae gig. Can you do it? Yeah, I can do it. Let's go.
Yeah.
So I really like to try to stay as versatile as I can, rather than just kind of, locking into one type of thing. And
Yeah.
equipment's expensive and I've got a family, so I don't have expendable income to go
Right.
buy all the stuff. And I would love to slowly be able to grow all of that. But for the time being, I'm just trying to stay versatile. But I really love my snare. I usually end up using the black nickel snare at the church just for, again, continuity, because that's what we need, something similar Sunday to Sunday.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really love my vertical snare drum. If anybody's looking for a snare, check them
Nice.
out.
Well, how do you think that your setup has changed, like as you've matured? I mean, I can think of myself, and I like just my pedal board, what basses I play, what I use, how that is kind of like changed over the years as I've gotten better at my instrument, and just as I've matured and realized what I need and I don't need.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have done a bunch of realizing what I need and don't need. I just haven't done a lot of buying. So um, I'm in kind of a unique situation where I am playing the same drum set that my parents bought for me when I was in 7th grade, I
That's
think.
amazing.
And I remember it was Christmas morning. We were at my aunt and uncle's house doing Christmas morning with them. And they had me go walk into the garage to get something. And they had the cars pulled out and a blanket down. And they
Nice.
had my drum set up. And
Amazing.
I think that was the first time ever that I experienced what it's like to be speechless, because I walked out and I just didn't know what to think. So I have, yeah, exactly. I have a really inexpensive pearl export kit.
Nice.
But what I have done over the years is I have refined my abilities and my techniques in tuning and knowing how to tune for what I'm doing, different head choices, all of that kind of stuff. So depending on whatever type of gig, if I'm bringing my kit to it, I'll look into like, what do I need? Do I need clear heads? Do I need coated heads? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And then I'll just use it to set it up that way. And I've been able to use that kit for all these years. And, if I was more of a professional drummer, I'm sure I'd have something more along the lines of what we have at church.
sure.
But for what I'm doing right now, my kit has worked great for me.
Yeah,
Um, the one thing I have upgraded over the last couple of years is there's a smaller cymbal company called Dream Cymbals, and those are the cymbals that I use now. I've used them since probably 2020 or 2021 as my personal go-to.
yeah,
They're just a smaller company. I really like to support smaller companies if I
yeah.
can. But they use the same B20 brass that everybody else uses.
Hmm.
They're just, kind of in their own little niche, and they're a smaller company, so they don't charge as much. And
Nice.
I really liked them. They've been great for me for all the different camps and church gigs and little
Yeah,
gigs that I've done over the past 10 years or so.
that's amazing. So one of the things that I started was this, as we kind of like come in towards the end here, is a little rapid fire section. And I
Yeah.
started to put it together. I was like, okay, wait a minute. I've got to change some of this because I'm not asking a bass player, I'm asking a drummer.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, okay, what can I even ask? Because I don't even know. I hardly know anything, obviously, about the drums. So
About drums.
I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll just get Chat GPT to help me figure out some questions.
Perfect. All right, let's go.
Chat GPT the rescue. So
Yeah.
anyway, here we go. We'll do our rapid fire, and that is
All right.
coated or clear heads.
I'm a coated head guy. That's just
Okay,
kind of where I usually sit. So, some sort of coated head is where I go. Double ply coated head.
nice. Favorite sticks.
I have been for years using a stick brand called Dope
Okay,
Sticks. I just recently started messing around with another smaller company called Woody's. I actually used their sticks last month when I played. So I'm kind of giving them a try. Haven't used them for too long yet, but I've been a long Dope Stick user. They've got a bunch of fun colors and stuff like that. So
yeah.
it's just kind of fun to throw that in every once in a while.
What size do you usually use too?
I'm a 5A guy. So
Okay.
sometimes a 5A long or a 5AX, but I get asked that a lot because people see that I'm a pretty hard hitter and they're surprised I don't use 5Bs. But 5As are just a little bit smaller in diameter. And personally, I would rather that the sticks give out faster than the drum heads or the cymbals because those are a lot
Mm,
more expensive to replace.
true. Very true. Uh, favorite worship song to play?
Ah, I would have to say on the fast spectrum, probably praise because it can just go
Oh
so many
yeah.
different ways and so many different places. Right now on the slower, more worship spectrum, Elohim, I think is still up there for
Yeah.
me. We got to play that a few months ago and
Yep.
it was a great one.
Yeah. Definitely. Uh, desert island snare. Like if you could only just pick one snare, what would it be?
This is probably a pretty easy answer for everybody. I think probably most drummers will say a Black Beauty, a Ludwig Black Beauty, because
Yeah.
it's in every studio for a reason.
Right.
But outside of that one, I really love my raw brass vertical snare
Hmm.
drum. So
That's
that'd be
awesome.
my one of those two. If I'm not allowed to use the typical one, then my raw
Right.
brass. But if I'm allowed to say anything legitimately, it'd be the Ludwig Black Beauty.
That's awesome. Favorite drummer.
Uh I'd probably have to say all in all would be Dave Weckl. just
Nice.
because he's got the pocket, but he's also got some fun chops. He can, he can
Yeah.
go up there and compete with LP, but he can also stay locked like Zorro. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. Uh, Favorite coffee of choice?
like coffee brand
Yeah, or yeah,
or
like maybe a brand or just like like whether you like a light roast or a dark roast or
okay, gotcha. So, I typically lean to a medium roast. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, so
yeah.
they are very dark roast. That's where Starbucks started. So
That's
it's
right.
very everybody likes dark French roasts up there. But I would say I'm a little bit more medium, just because I like the caffeine content of the lighter roast, but I like there to be a little bit of bite. I don't put anything in my
Mm,
coffee; I just drink it black. So
yeah.
I like there to be a little bit of bite there. And then we have an espresso machine at home that you pour the beans in and it grinds it up and makes your coffee for you. And we use this brand called Danger Coffee.
Okay.
And they actually put um, like minerals and electrolytes and stuff into the
Oh,
coffee. There's this
nice.
powder that's mixed in with it. And for all of the coffee that I consume as a drummer and as a dad of two young kids, I feel like getting a little bit of extra electrolytes and minerals is
Yeah.
probably good for me.
Yes, exactly. Uh, Favorite coffee shop?
I'd have to say Honest Coffee up at the factory.
Yeah.
I really like going up there. I've got had a couple of meetings with different guys and stuff up there, and that's probably my favorite spot to go to if I get a chance to go do that.
Yeah, different guys like Zay and not me.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just having for the people out there listening, I'm having a little fun because so myself, Jeremy, and a friend of ours, Isaiah, we call him Zay, the three of us are a trio of friendship. So he plays electric guitar, serves on Sunday mornings too. And, right now, Jeremy's schedule has been that he's been home. I'm a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5er kind of thing. And so the two of them have gone a couple times and had coffee and then have mentioned it. And I've been like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. You guys have been going. And so I said, next time, what you have to do is take your phone and just put a picture of me like I'm there with you. So,
Yes.
so just having a
Yes,
little,
exactly.
having a little fun. So,
Yeah.
so when you're not like listening to your uh planning center app and listening to the songs that you're preparing for, what's right now some music that you listen to?
um, I mean, I guess it again kind of comes back to I just love Pocket. So different types of like funk music, or there's even a lot of different pop music out there that just has some really fat pocket in it.
Yeah.
Example, like, can't think of any more recent stuff, but something relatable like Bruno Mars kind of style, where
Mm.
he's just kind of got that funky pocket in it. That's kind of where I live. I like stuff that makes you want to kind of bob your head and dance a little bit. And my mood really affects what I'm doing. Like when I'm
Yeah.
pumped up and trying to get to work, and I know I got a lot of stuff to get done and I'm on site, I'm traveling, I might listen to some pop punk music or some rock music and pump myself up or whatever.
Some yellow
Um,
card.
but yeah, exactly, exactly. But I mean, shoot, I might listen to contemporary music for worship. I might listen to some gospel music for worship. There's some newer gospel tunes that have been coming out that are just
Yeah.
fun to listen to, and we'll never
Hmm.
do them on a Sunday at our church,
Right.
but tons of fun to listen to, and I just love bobbing my head and I smile the whole
Yeah.
time. So anything, pretty much anything with Pocket, and I'm down.
Nice. I love that. So wrapping things up here, advice. First question is advice for, say, a new worship drummer. Like if they're new, they're kind of learning to play and they really want to get to serve, like what advice would you give for them?
Yeah. I would say learn to listen through the song, learn the parts, listen to your team while you're playing. My in-ear mix, I have everybody. I have the whole band in there. I might not have all 5, 6, 7 vocals, however many vocals we have.
Yeah.
But every time I usually at least have the people that are leading, but I always have the whole band in there so that I can hear what everybody's doing. Serve the song. Don't think, how can you be creative? This isn't an Instagram cover. This is a Sunday morning.
Right.
So serve the song. And then preparation builds confidence. So prepare, be ready to go. Don't come Sunday morning rehearsal learning the song or trying to figure it out. Know the song first. And I'm a great example of, I don't have the ability to sit down and go play through all this stuff, but I still make sure that I know that song inside and out before I show up on a Sunday morning.
Yeah. And then the same question, but advice you would give to, say, a bassist, what would you say?
Yeah. Lock in first again, make sure that you're locked on that. Communicate clearly, like be comfortable talking back and forth with your drummer. Cause again, it's easy for drums to lead, but if you're thinking or feeling or whatever for something, talk with your drummer about it. And that way you guys can be locked. Cause if you just stay in your lane playing what you're doing and he's stuck in his lane playing what he's doing, that's a two-way conversation, and you guys are the foundation of the band. So make sure that you're aligned there. And then choose a lane where you're going to be, where you're going to live, how that's going to look like. And then trust your drummer. It's the drummer's job to prepare and, be able to drive through those dynamics, whether you're building the band up or you're pulling everything back. So just have that relationship where you guys can trust each other back and forth.
Yeah. And a perfect example of communication is just, the last time that you and I played together was for the Christmas Eve services. And we did Holy Forever. And we had this build part. And in my head, I started to hear kind of I called it the Bethel build. And I said, and so we talked it over and we were able to do that. And I'll never forget. So the first service that we went to do it, we got to that point and I was like, oh yeah, this is the spot. And I look over and I see you kind of leaning forward a little bit to look underneath the hi-hat to say, almost like, are you ready? We going to do this?
You ready?
So
that's right.
Anyway, we did it. And then we did it for, I'll knock my light over, but we did it. And then we had it for all the remaining services. So like just something as simple as that, having that dialogue and talking about a certain part or a certain build. Hey, what if we did this? That's, I feel like, is some of the best things that you can do is just that communication, talking about things. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. And then lastly, I just thought I would ask this: what's something lately that God's been showing you or teaching you?
Biggest thing that comes to mind for me right now is patience. And so just, being patient while I'm, navigating life or working on something, working on a project. And that kind of works as a good segue, especially for new drummers coming up or bass players, in that regard. Be patient and stay consistent. Because as you get more reps, as you continue to practice, it will come, and I really struggle with that. We all want that, that microwave delivery where it's just there right now.
Instant gratification.
Exactly, and, but this kind of stuff, even the relationship that you talked about between us, it takes time.
Yeah.
Learning how to play with a team. Some people may not know how to play with a click. Just keep at it, keep practicing, and be patient, and it will come.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we're at the end here. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. Like I said, my first non-bassist, which is cool. That's what
Heck
I
yeah.
had already determined when I was kind of making my list of people. I was like, okay, my first drummer definitely has to be Jeremy. So thanks for being able to do this before your job craziness starts back up again.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for asking me. I've had a blast hanging out with you. So
Yeah.
appreciate you having me on.
Well, also I will, so you're on Instagram and like sharing some of your your drum videos, and then also we have some collaborations too. So I will be sure like this will be on YouTube also, the video portion of it. The audio will be on all the normal places that you listen to, but at the bottom there I'll have links just in case somebody wants to be able to find you. But just if you want to go ahead and share like what your Instagram handle is.
Yeah, so it's just Jeremy W Drums. Tried to keep it super simple there. But yeah, like you said, we're on a few videos together on your page. So if you're connected with Jay, then you'll be able to find me on there as well. But yeah, just JW Drums if you look that up, or you can search my name, Jeremy Williams, and I've got my little drum graphic on there as my profile picture.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, cool, man. Well, I appreciate it. And we will hopefully you'll have a good rest of your day with your fam, spending time. And
Yeah.
Me too. I think I got to go pick up my daughter. She went with some friends to coffee shops. Got to go pick her up.
Awesome.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Seriously appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll be on the phone to Brandon to go ahead and get us locked in for February together.
Perfect. Love it.
Awesome. Cool, man. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, dude. Later.
See ya.
Welcome back to the Worship Based Coffee Studios. Episode 15 to an end, and it was great. I really appreciated Jeremy coming on. Not only is he an amazing drummer, but he's just a great friend of mine. And I feel like, some of the times that's things that are not taught, and that is how the psychology, Jacob Lowry talked about it a few episodes back, of the psychology of getting to know people in the room, having that connection. That's some of the most important stuff, where it's like minor details that don't get taught, like modes or scales or whatever, like getting to know people that you're playing with and forming that chemistry can take things up to a different level that you didn't know that could. And so I'm really thankful for Jeremy and for his friendship with me and for that. And so I wanted to let this just be an encouragement to y'all, and to do a little reminder of asking somebody out for coffee that's on your worship team. Doesn't matter who it is. If it's the drummer, just somebody on your worship team, ask them out for coffee, and just go sit down. That's what the coffee and worship-based coffee is for. And so I just want it to be a reminder, encouragement. And I've even thought, hey, if you can't meet, because weather conditions, I mean, I know how it is, then maybe even doing it through FaceTime, sitting down with both of you, having a cup of coffee and just sitting down and chatting for a little bit. So, but with all of that, I just wanted to do a shout out to a few people that have become friends of mine, Insta friends, if you want to call it that. And they constantly contribute to the worship-based coffee community. And I'm just really thankful for them and for what they've done. So I just wanted to give them all a shout out. So, and also I'm very sorry if up front I do the name wrong thing again. I feel you can guess with my last name how much I've had to deal with that. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, first is Juan Ibarra. Next is Miguel Jimenez, Scott Weaver, Daniel Rodriguez, Phil Lawson, Ethan Eckhorn. I don't even know if I said that right. Josh Summers and Jonathan Remilio. Those people are some of the ones, and a couple of them have actually been some of the guests that you've got to experience. They've been some of the ones that have either been messaging me or have shared stuff on here. And I just wanted to give a shout out and a thanks to those guys for helping me with building this community. This again, just know my heart. This has never been about me somehow gaining something out of this other than just having a heart for having something out there that was missing for the community. And to be able to hear some of these stories as I kind of reflect on some of this and think about, how can I improve, adapt, whatever, I really think about how I think it's special to be able to hear people's stories, hear how they learned how to play music, hear how, they've been involved in church, how they got involved in church. Those stories I think are really interesting, and they're unique, and then they're relatable sometimes. And so anyway, saying all that, I'm looking forward to this next episodes that are coming up, and I know that you will too. And so anyway, as we say every week before we go, remember to tell someone you love them, and we'll talk to you next time.